The top stories tonight in Y News. The Department of Energy has sought the reconsideration of the suspended oil exploration activities in the West Philippine Sea.
Weeks before the May 2022 elections, the Commission on Elections is withholding payment to its poll software provider Smartmatic following a supposed data breach.
Malacanang denounced the shooting in an ancestral land of the Manobo tribe in Bukidnon visited by presidential aspirant Yodi de Guzman.
And for our news abroad, Shanghai has announced its first deaths since the Omicron version of the coronavirus broke out in the Chinese city in March.
Good evening, Philippines and the world. Today is Tuesday, the 19th of April, 2022. Join us in the next hour as we deliver today's top stories around the Philippines and in other parts of the world. I am William Theo.
We are also seen in 1,935 satellite monitoring centers nationwide and via live streaming worldwide through the UNTV News and Rescue social media accounts and our website, untvweb.com. I am Elsie Marcos.
First in the news, the Department of Energy, or DOE, has appealed to a cabinet cluster to reconsider its decision to put on hold all oil exploration activities in the West Philippine Sea. A maritime law expert, meanwhile, says the Philippines is losing the game. Rosalie Cos will tell us why.
The Department of Energy awaits the go signal from the Security, Justice and Peace Coordinating Council, or SJPCC, to resume all exploration activities for Service Contracts 72 and 75. These are two sites of Palawan Province. On April 6, 2022, the DOE directed PXP Energy Corporation and Forum Exchange to put on hold all exploration activities in the disputed islands until the SJPCC has issued the necessary clearance to proceed.
The DOE sought reconsideration on the ground that under international law, a geophysical survey is perfectly legitimate activity in any disputed area. The DOE is still waiting for the decision on its requests for reconsideration.
It was in March 2022 when President Rodrigo Duterte revealed he received a reminder from China about the joint exploration activity in the West Philippine Sea, particularly in Recto Bank. The president did not provide much details, but he warned of potential trouble if the agreement will not be honored.
Sundin lang ninyo kung ano yung pinag-usapan noon. Honor yan eh. It's a matter of honor. We gave our consensual talks, tapos may written agreement. Pag iniba yan, delikado. So, hindi na mangyari sa akin yan kasi ayaw kong ibahin kasi yun ang pinag-usapan namin sa panahon.
Meanwhile, maritime law expert attorney J. Batong Bakal said this is a signal that China is seriously out to prevent any petroleum exploration and development by the Philippines within its own waters. Recto Bank is considered rich in natural oil and gas deposits. It is part of the Philippines' exclusive economic zone and continental shelf, but China continues to dispute it. Rosalie Cos, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
Albay 2nd District Representative Joey Salceda stressed that the National Bureau of Investigation should be more involved in strongly prosecuting cases of large-scale smuggling of agricultural products to protect Filipino farmers. Nel Maribuhok will tell us why.
The House Committee on Ways and Means conducted their regular meeting today to tackle agricultural smuggling. Agot Balanoy, manager of the Highland Farmers Multipurpose Cooperative in Benguet, asked the government to implement measures against the influx of smuggled agri products, which has taken a toll on the livelihood of farmers.
these smuggled goods should not enter the Philippines. It is unfair, it is an unfair competition na yung local na produce ay makikipag-compete sa imported na smuggled na hindi nagbayad ng tax.
Albay 2nd District Representative Joey Salceda, who chairs the committee, expressed his frustrations on the seeming inaction of the Department of Agriculture in the operations of agri-smuggling.
I think the DA is the mother of all agri-smuggling. I think as simple as that. And all we have is a customs that looks the other way.
But according to DA Assistant Secretary Federico Lasiste Jr., they are now conducting an investigation on the matter.
Meron na sir kaming initial guidance na sir coming from Secretary to conduct investigation sir.
Salceda instructed the Department of Justice to use the National Bureau of Investigation to prosecute cases more strongly against large-scale agricultural smuggling pursuant to Republic Act No. 10845 or the Anti-Agricultural Smuggling Act. The lawmaker is also mulling to implement amendments to the Special Safeguards Law such that regardless of whether imported goods are smuggled or not, the safeguards will apply. Nel Maribuhok, UNTV News and Rescue, we serve the people, we give glory to God.
The Department of Interior and Local Government dismissed a report issued by the U.S. State Department that Philippine security forces are involved in human rights violations, calling it sweeping, rhetorical, and unfounded. Leah Ilagan explains why.
DILG Secretary Eduardo Año calls the report of the U.S. State Department as mere accusations against the Philippine security forces. In its 2021 country report on human rights practices, the U.S. State Department said that it received credible reports that members of the security forces committed numerous abuses. Secretary Año claims the report were loosely picked up from the traditional social media. The DILG Secretary adds the report also belittles the hard work and sacrifice of the men and women of the AFP and PNP who had been risking their lives in fighting crimes and illegal drugs. In a separate statement, Department of National Defense Secretary Delfin Lorenzana also questioned the U.S. State Department report. Secretary Lorenzana pointed out that these accusations are nothing but innuendos and witch hunts. Meanwhile, PNP Chief General Leonardo Carlos echoed Lorenzana's calls and said the U.S. State Department must show evidence to back up its report.
So, kung sweeping yun, show us your proof na hindi effective. Di ba? When one is not doing it right, the leadership and the kapwa police namin, we're the one putting them on, investigating them and putting them on investigate them and make them answer for their wrongdoings.
Leia Ilagan, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
As the May 2022 elections approaches, the Commission on Elections decided to withhold a 90 million pesos payment for the services to Smartmatic, its automated elections technology provider whose data were allegedly breached. Dante Amento reports why.
Unless the issue of the alleged Smartmatic data breach is resolved, the poll body has decided to withhold the remaining 90 million pesos payment to their service provider as an initial course of action. Comelec Chairman Saidamin Pangarungan stresses their law department has also given some recommendations if proven that Smartmatic violated its obligations in the contract.
And the courses of action recommended would be 1. Termination of the contract and possible blacklisting. 2. Forfeiture of performance security. 3. Damages pursuant to the Data Privacy Act and the Civil Code of the Philippines. And 4. Filing of criminal cases pursuant to the Data Privacy Act.
The poll body is just waiting for the result of the investigation by the National Bureau of Investigation to decide on possible additional sanctions against Smartmatic. Meanwhile, the Smartmatic assures that they are cooperating with the Commission amid the ongoing investigation on the data breach issue. Close monitoring of its employees also continues.
We are also looking at the possibility of conducting using former law enforcement to conduct background checks on people that may be hired for the future, Your Honor. Second, Your Honor, we have classified our information wherein levels of access are determined only by positions.
On the other hand, the NBI disclosed that they already have a person of interest. The person is said to be a notorious hacker.
How certain are you that the Iloilo Black Hat is the third hacker who was involved in the Comelec of 2016?
There are so many circumstances, ma'am, to prove that he was involved. First, when he left the Philippines, he went to Iloilo, and all of a sudden, these things happened in Iloilo. And at that precise moment, he was a member of a group that created a company offering their services for penetration testing, vulnerability assessment. So those coincidences would tell us that he is involved. And at the same time, ma'am, if you're going to compare the XOX, they are actually offering their services to Smartmatic. So those things would tell us that he is actually involved.
Nonetheless, the poll body has assured that the Smartmatic case would not affect the May 9, 2022 elections. Dante Amento, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
Meanwhile, a political analyst believes that convincing undecided voters only a few weeks before Election Day might affect the election results. Eileen Cerudo will tell us why live. Yes, Eileen, good evening. Go ahead.
Good evening, William. Candidates are now doubling their campaigning with only a few days left before Election Day. A recent survey conducted by the Octa Research Group, around 20% of Filipino voters have yet to finalize their choice for president. According to political analyst Professor Froilan Calilong from the UST Political Science Department, if a candidate can convince undecided voters, it might affect the results of the elections.
So far as the undecided voter is concerned, batay nga dun sa kanilang pag-aaral na ginawa, if it's 20%, I think that is going to be statistically significant.
Professor Calilong explains campaign rallies might help in convincing undecided voters to choose a candidate.
What these rallies are doing right now is further cementing yung tinatawag nating strong voter base, particularly for those candidates na talagang merong malawak na suporta from their hard voting base. Kahit sabihin natin na medyo malaki nga yung agwat ni BBM, pero we could surmise na itong 20% na to, if ever this will go in the way of Vice President Leni Robredo, may actually also create a big effect on the voter turnout.
However, this will still depend on the number of undecided voters. He said that if the actual number of undecided voters are low, it might not be statistically significant in the election results. He also added that most Filipinos are hard voters or have already decided which candidate to vote for. Meanwhile, Professor Calilong said discussions of withdrawal is nothing new during the election period.
What they really wanted to do is to have a united front, na makakalaban doon sa ating erstwhile frontrunner na si BBM. Unfortunately, I think none of them would like to give in. Ang kanila lang kasing sinasabi dito is kinakausap sila, allegedly, ng kampo ni Vice President Leni Robredo for them to withdraw. And knowing for a fact that they have already invested a lot of time, effort, machinery, resources, and political capital in the elections, they wouldn't want to do that.
Based on the latest survey released by Octa Research Group, former Senator Bongbong Marcos Jr. still leads the presidential race. However, VP Leni records a huge jump among the other candidates. William?
Yes, thank you very much. Eileen Cerudo reporting live.
Malacanang condemned the shooting incident against the camp of presidential candidate Cal Yodi de Guzman in Bukidnon. Acting presidential spokesperson and presidential communications secretary Martin Andanar in a statement said, violence has no place in any civilized society. He also urged local authorities to conduct thorough investigation and prosecute those behind the dastardly act. The government plans to begin the rollout of the second booster shot to select individuals by next week. 6 vaccine brands have been approved as booster shots by the Food and Drug Administration. JP Nunez reports.
The rollout of the second booster dose was supposed to start tomorrow. However, it was postponed as the Department of Health still awaits the Health Technology Assessment Council or HTAC recommendation. The DOH explains there was a delay in the recommendation but HTAC will soon convene for the early rollout.
Hinihintay natin yung ating review and recommendations ng Health Technology Assessment Council para ma-roll out na ito. Ready na yung ating guidelines, idadagdag lang natin yung provisions na ng FDA, EUA at saka nitong final recommendations ng ating Health Technology Assessment Council.
According to the Health Technology Assessment Council Secretariat, magko-convene sila soonest time possible para tayo po ay magkaroon na nitong guidelines or recommendations from them so that DOH can be able to issue out the guidelines and we start implementation.
The National Vaccination Operations Center or NVOC said that the latest possible rollout of the second booster dose will be by the end of this month.
Ang tinarget natin sa umpisa is really sana April 20, but may konting delay sa ating HTAC recommendations. Hopefully maka-roll out tayo earliest by the end of the week, latest by start of next week.
COVID-19 vaccine brands approved for second booster dose includes Pfizer, Moderna, Sinovac, AstraZeneca, Sputnik Light, and Janssen. NVOC aims to begin the rollout in the National Capital Region, prioritizing medical workers, senior citizens, and immunocompromised before expanding the vaccination rollout to other regions. The second booster shot may be given 4 months after the first booster dose. The NVOC reiterates its call to the public to get their booster shot.
Medyo mabagal. Nasa 12.6 million pa rin ang ating boosters. So kailangan na irampa natin for the rest of the April and then sa ating May and June.
Meanwhile, NVOC is still waiting for the emergency use authorization of COVID-19 vaccines for inoculating 12 to 17-year-old kids with their booster dose. JP Nunez, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The Department of Education plans to begin the school year 2022-2023 by late August based on its newly proposed school calendar. The DepEd will also continue to implement a blended learning scheme, an approach to education that integrates traditional in-person learning and online training. Janice Inhente reports why.
With only 2 months left before the end of school year 2021 to 2022 on June 24, the Department of Education or DepEd is preparing the school calendar for next school year which aims to begin on August 22, 2022. Based on DepEd's proposed school calendar for the year 2022 to 2023, the class will last for 215 days ending on July 7, 2023. Meanwhile, the end-of-year school rites or graduation will be conducted on July 10 to 14 of 2023.
May Christmas break din po, December 19. Magbabalik po ang mga bata, January 2, 2023. Magkakaroon ng mid-year break sa February 6 hanggang 10. sa bawat grading period magkakaroon din po ng opportunity na madagdagan yung panahon para mas matuto ang mga bata.
Remedial or summer classes for students are scheduled from July 17 to August 26, 2023. Meanwhile, DepEd clarified that the implementation of different learning modalities such as online classes will still continue next school year. But there would be more education institutions holding face-to-face classes alongside with the remote learning.
Ang isang feature po ng ating school calendar sa darating na pasukan, blended po tayo. Mas marami na rin yung face-to-face. Preference namin, more F2F pero blended. 2 days or 3 days a week. Tapos yung other days, home-based learning pa rin.
Despite this, DepEd said allowing face-to-face classes will still depend on the COVID-19 alert level system in an area. Janice Enhente, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The Land Transportation Franchising and Regulatory Board has yet to resume the disbursement of fuel subsidy, but the agency expects to continue the implementation of the program within the week. Asher Kadapan Jr. details why.
The Land Transportation Franchising and Regulatory Board is still waiting for the resolution from the Commission on Elections exempting the fuel subsidy program from the disbursement ban. LTFRB Executive Director Maria Cristina Casion explains it is imperative that they receive the copy of the resolution duly signed by the chairman and commissioners of Comelec as it is stated in the law. With this, the Department of Transportation plans to send a letter to Comelec to expedite this process and resume the disbursement of the aid at the soonest time possible.
Kung napadala na po yun ng Comelec ay napadala na po yun ng DOTR doon sa Comelec. We're expecting within the week naman po ay siguro mapirmahan na yun. As I've said, it's ministerial naman na lang po kasi on record naman po sinasabi na lang they have already approved for the program.
The LTFRB, however, wastes no time in facilitating other processes in the fuel subsidy disbursement, including payroll preparation, account verification, and bank card production. This way, once the LTFRB receives the Comelec resolution, it will be just a matter of crediting the monetary aid to the accounts of other public utility vehicle operators and drivers who have yet to receive the benefit. But the LTFRB confirms that they are still waiting for the list of tricycle drivers included in the program from the Department of Interior and Local Government. DILG Undersecretary Jonathan Malaya says they have already requested the list from the local government units who are administering the tricycle operations.
Yung implementing guidelines nito ay napirmahan na rin ni Secretary Anyo, and we are now cascading this to the various LGUs for them to comply and submit to the LTFRB yung mga listahan.
Tricycle drivers, on the other hand, expect to still receive the aid despite the delays, especially amid another increase in the prices of petroleum products today.
Basta hinintay lang talaga namin, wala pa. Yan ang nasahan namin talaga. Kawawa yung pamilyan. Laking bagay sana yun eh.
Yung po nga amin after hanggang ngayon, nasaan dumating po yun para makapagtipid po kami sa aming pagkabiyahe namin. Dagdag po sa aming tulong po yun. Sana po, awa ng Diyos, darating na po.
Wala ang problema kung meron o kung wala. Mas mayroon, mas maganda din.
Asher Kadapan Jr., UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
Amid calls of withdrawal from other contenders, the camp of presidential candidate and Vice President Leni Robredo remains firm that there's no backing out in the race. Meanwhile, the Leni Kiko team goes back to Central Luzon to woo voters weeks before the elections. Harleen Delgado will tell us why.
The camp of presidential candidate and Vice President Leni Robredo maintains they will focus on the campaign in the remaining 20 days before the May 9 polls. This amid the call of fellow candidate Manila Mayor Isko Moreno Dumagoso for Robredo to withdraw from the race. Earlier in a television interview, another candidate, former Defense Secretary Norberto Gonzales, apologized to Robredo over the call to withdraw. In a statement, Robredo spokesman Attorney Barry Gutierrez says they appreciate the gesture, but an apology is unnecessary. He maintains they are focused on working double time with their people's campaign. Today, the Leni Kiko team visited the province of Zambales. In San Narciso town, Robredo and Pangilinan held a multi-sectoral assembly with farmers, fisherfolk, and women's groups. There, Pangilinan highlighted the need to prioritize Filipino farmers and double the country's budget on agriculture sector.
Sa July pa lamang, ipupulong na natin ang DepEd, DILG, DSWD, DOH, ang AFP, ang PNP at sasabihin natin sa kanila, ilaan na ninyo yung budget na binibili ninyong pagkain, i-porsyento na ninyo yung mas malaki para sa magsasaka at mangingisda para ditong darating na Pasko, maganda na ang benta.
Robredo meanwhile vows to strengthen the Philippine Coast Guard as well as the Filipino fishermen amid the tensions in the West Philippine Sea.
Ano yung reklamo sa atin ng mga mangingisda natin? Na kakaunti lang sila, pag ginugrupuhan sila ng napakarami ng mga Chinese fishing vessels, parang wala na silang magawa. So dapat tayo, nag-i-invest yung pamahalaan para magpagawa na maayos na mga fishing vessels para sa mga mangingisda natin. Para kahit papano, natatapatan natin yung dami nila.
The Robredo ticket also attended a campaign rally in Olongapo City wherein the Leni Kiko tandem was endorsed by former Senator June Magsaysay and the chieftain of the Aita community in Botolan, Zambales, Fe Dumulot. In the 2016 vice presidential race, Robredo lost to Bongbong Marcos in Zambales by almost 60,000 votes. On the same day, the Leni Kiko team also went to Bataan to attend the Bataan Grand People's Rally in Balanga City. The Robredo ticket will be visiting the provinces of Negros Oriental and Siquijor tomorrow. Jorlene Delgado, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
And for the news abroad, China reports a new and rising number of deaths following a new COVID outbreak. Marvi Delphine will tell us why live. Good evening, Marvi.
Good evening, Elsie. The new and highly contagious COVID variant Omicron BA.2 has swept China's most populous city of Shanghai in another round of rising infected cases. 10 new deaths have been reported after the new variant was first identified earlier this year. On Monday, 3 deaths were of elderly people who had multiple comorbidities and were unvaccinated. Health Commission Inspector Wu Ganyu stated that their conditions only grew worse even after entering hospital. The 7 other fatalities recorded today were also aged between 60 and 101 years old. Elsie, only 62% of the elderly population have been vaccinated twice, and a lot of doubt has been cast on the accuracy of these numbers. As of today, more than 20,000 new cases have been reported, most of whom are asymptomatic, bringing the nation's total to almost 190,000. At the moment, Shanghai's 25 million residents have been isolated in their homes for 3 weeks in an aim to mitigate the outbreak. Elsie?
Marvi, what regulations have been put in place for China to help stop the spread of the new COVID variant?
Elsie, China still has its strict policy on lockdowns, quarantine, and testing, calling it a zero-tolerance approach to COVID. However, with the rising cases in multiple regions, there have been reports of heavy-handed enforcement and more severe quarantine conditions to contain the new variant. Back to you, Elsie.
Thank you, Marvi Delphine, reporting live from Australia.
The White House has announced the United States will co-host the second global COVID-19 summit virtually next month to discuss efforts to end the pandemic internationally and prepare for future health threats. The emergence and spread of new variants like Omicron have reinforced the need for a strategy aimed at controlling COVID-19 worldwide. the White House said in a joint news release. The announcement comes amid a surge of COVID-19 cases in parts of the United States and around the world. The summit will build on efforts and commitments made at the first global summit in September, including getting more people vaccinated, sending tests and treatments to highest risk populations, expanding protections to healthcare workers, and generating financing for pandemic preparedness.
The United States and South Korea agreed on the need for a stronger response to North Korea's missile testing. Ia De Vera details why live. Yes, Ia?
Elsie, the U.S. Special Envoy for North Korea, Sung Kim, met with South Korean nuclear envoy No Kyu-duk after North Korea performed its 13th round of weapons firing this year, testing its new type of missiles. Moreover, there is a concern that the North may conduct a nuclear test soon. According to Kim, the U.S. and South Korea are in accordance with the need for a strong response on the behavior shown by North Korea. However, Kim emphasized that allies have no hostile intentions towards North Korea. They are still open to diplomacy, and the U.S. is ready to meet with the country without any conditions. Meanwhile, North Korea has rejected this engagement for talks until the United States drop its hostile policy towards the country. Also, according to some experts, North Korea views U.S. military drills with South Korea as an invasion practice. Elsie?
Thank you, Ia De Vera, for that live report.
The U.S. military exercise this month has a different take. Some soldiers are speaking Russian, and the army is using all the learnings from the actual events based on Russia's invasion to Ukraine. Ryuji Sasaki tells us why live. Yes, Ryuji, good evening, go ahead.
Good evening, William. U.S. Army trainers are now preparing for future fights against a major adversary through a rigorous role-playing exercise at the National Training Center. U.S. Army Secretary Christine Wormuth said they are using the lessons learned from Russia's equipment and logistics troubles to issue with communications and use of the internet since Moscow's invasion to Ukraine. Commander Brigadier General Kurt Taylor said they are teaching the brigades to fuse all elements of their combat power into a coordinated assault. About 4,500 soldiers are out training in the Mojave Desert, where they will spend 2 weeks fighting the enemy played by NTC's resident 11th Armored Cavalry Regiment. The role players have to film and post quickly to social media, which pose a challenge according to Taylor. The enemy force is also using a steady stream of social media posts to make false accusations against the American brigade. Meanwhile, in the coming weeks, the training scenario will focus on how to battle in an enemy willing to destroy a city with a rocket and missile fire. William?
Yes, thank you very much, Ryuji Sasaki, reporting live.
Meanwhile, the Department of Health warns of a possible surge of COVID-19 cases in the National Capital Region by mid-May. The DOH says it has observed several health protocol violations during the long holiday. Aiko Miguel explains why.
The Health Department has a projection of 500,000 active cases of COVID-19 by mid-May. Health spokesperson Undersecretary Maria Rosario Vergeres said this is if adherence to health and safety protocols will decrease to 50%.
This is something to warn all of us. This is something to guide all of us so that we will prepare and we will try to prevent from this thing or this situation to happen. Kaya po sinatawag na projection. Kaya natin lagi sinasabi, this is not cast in stone. Pagka sinabi natin na nag-project tayo ng 500,000, it doesn't mean it's going to happen na talagang 100% sure. Diba? What would be most important right now would be is that we have flagged this information to the public. We have informed our kababayans na maaring mangyari ito because of all the risk factors that we had been observing for these past weeks.
The DOH also worries over the influx of people in different places this long holiday. Undersecretary Vergeres said health and safety protocols were violated.
Mukhang nagkaroon talaga tayo ng breaches, no? Yung ating mga paglabag sa minimum public health standards. We have seen that these videos where people were partying without any mask at all and talagang siksikan sila.
The DOH reminds the public to self-monitor for 5 to 7 days to make sure they are not infected with COVID-19.
Kung sakasakali po na magkakasimptomas, please isolate at once. Please wear your mask even though you are at home para lang po mas protektado tayo. Pagkaraan ng 7 araw naman at kayo naman ay fully vaccinated, you can already be able to ascertain, no, na hindi po kayo nahawa.
Local government units are also held accountable in their areas that have exceeded the crowd limit during the long holiday. Aiko Miguel, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
Our kasangbahay, as the world faces these trying times amid the pandemic caused by coronavirus, we are inviting everyone to join the global prayer for humanity from Monday to Friday, 9:30 p.m. Philippine time through the social media accounts of Members Church of God International.
And before we close, we will leave you with the word giving glory to God from the book of Proverbs chapter 16 verse 3. It says, "Commit thy works unto the Lord, and thy thoughts shall be established." And those are the reasons behind the news, April 19, 2022. Reasons we deliver to you as they unfold. I am Elsie Marcos, reporting live from Auckland, New Zealand.
And because we need to know, we will always ask why. I am William Theo. We serve the people. We give glory to God.